Hi, this is Terry Powell. I'm going to read my brief life story. I was born in a small town in rural Georgia in April 1968 when my parents were turning 20 years old. I'm currently 56 and a half years old and will be eligible for retirement with 38 years of federal government service at the end of this year in 2024. So I decided to make this brief video of the overall highlights of my life story up to this point. Hopefully I've had some experiences others may find of benefit. From 1968 to 1975, I grew up in a mobile home, aka a trailer, and a cow pasture on my grandparents' farm. The farm had an old tobacco barn built from logs, an auto repair shop called Green's Garage, an old hay barn with a cattle chute, and a fishing irrigation pond. I spent my youth hunting and fishing, riding a bicycle, watching reruns of Bugs Bunny and Star Trek, practicing baseball, basketball, and football in the yard and cow pasture, mostly by myself, but also with my father. My brother was born in 1975 when our parents completed building a brick home on the corner of the same 80-acre farm between two small towns where I was born and where I went to high school. Mama took us regularly to Sunday school and other events at the nearby country church. Our home was located at what I jokingly called the nexus of the universe in the middle of nowhere, approximately the same distance from 5 small towns, as well as close to Statesboro, where Georgia Southern University is located, and an hour away from historic Savannah, Georgia. At ages 9 through 11, I won trophies in baseball, bicycling, and other field day activities. I started working summer jobs at age 12 in the early 80s and eventually earned enough money to buy my first stereo, a Honda three-wheeler to ride to the dirt roads to work to the tobacco fields, and later my grandmother's 1968 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme car that had a 350 rocket engine. I learned to play chess and read the novel Atlas Shrugged in 8th grade, which both had a huge impact on my life, and these were due to recommendations and my science and literature teachers' influences. I won hunting and fishing contest trophies circa 1983 and rattlesnake roundup prizes with my dad in 1985. In academics, I received the Junior Fellow Award for my score on the PSAT, medals in senior math, U.S. history, and English, the Bosch Alum Science Award, and the George Durrant Scholarship. I was also voted by my classmates as one of the 4 smartest senior superlatives, selected as an alternate for the NROTC scholarship, and scored second highest on the SAT, and I graduated from high school in the top 5 of my class with honors in 1986. I started college at Georgia Tech in the summer of 1986 and soon got on the 5-year cooperative education co-op program, alternating school and work quarters with the Directorate of Engineering and Housing at Fort Stewart, Georgia. I spent most of my time studying, but I spent my free time shooting pool at the Student Center, taking the MARTA subway trains to shop for music and books at Lenox Mall, going to movies with my new friends at Georgia Tech. I started learning to play guitar in the early 90s via lessons from my talented brother. I graduated from Georgia Tech on the Dean's List with a Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering degree in September 1991, and soon thereafter passed the Engineering Training EIT exam. I interviewed for several jobs in mechanical engineering during my senior year in college, but there was a recession in the job market in 1991. Since I graduated in the top third of my class at Georgia Tech and had held the co-op training job, I was able to start work full-time as a mechanical engineer at the Fort Stewart DPW, the Director of Public Works, in the fall of 1991. Although my 38-year length of federal service counts the 5 years co-op student years, starting at the beginning of 1987 when I was 19 years old. In 1992, I completed a grad level HVAC design course at the Air Force Institute of Technology, AFIT, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. I shared an apartment with a coworker in Savannah in 1993 and purchased my first home in Statesboro a year later in 1994, where my brother, who was attending GSU, stayed with me for a few months. I took the graduate records exam, the GRE exam, to work on a master's degree, and took a grad level night class at GSU in 1994. I met my first wife through work at Fort Stewart, and we got married in October 1994 and had our honeymoon in Charleston, South Carolina, before going to Asheville, North Carolina. We stayed at the Omni Hotel in Charleston and then went to the Biltmore House, Mount Mitchell, the Blue Ridge Parkway in Asheville. I was nominated for the 1997 Federal Engineer of the Year Award for my designs of mechanical systems and buildings and at the Central Energy Plant at military bases in the Southeast, like Fort Stewart. This was from 1992 through 1997. My eldest daughter was born in January 1998, and I earned my professional engineer license, PE license, in February of 1998. I was a member of the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, ASHRAE, and the National Society of Professional Engineers, NSPE, and as well as the Georgia Tech Briarian Honor Society in the 90s. We had a new house built in Statesboro in 1999. I started working as a claims manager with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Savannah District in January 2000. This position, which I held for 8 years, entailed analysis and presentations of construction contract claims disputes to contracting officers, attorneys, project managers, and area engineers. For claims that had merit, I negotiated contract modifications to settle the disputes. For those without merit that we denied, we prepared contracting officers' final decisions which could be appealed. I served as a witness for the government and assisted our trial attorney on a couple of Armed Services Board of Contract Appeals, ASBCA hearings in D.C., as well as an alternate disputes resolution, ADR mediation hearing in New Orleans just before Hurricane Katrina hit. My second daughter was born in April 2000, and due to the stress of that major life event combined with having a new house built and changing jobs, I had a condition for over a year called alopecia areata, where my hair fell out unevenly in a few bald spots. Fortunately, it eventually grew back for the most part. In August 2002, I started the year-long Army Management Staff College Sustaining Base Leadership and Management non-resident program in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. During that program, we had a midterm at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, with a day trip to New York City, where we visited the United Nations and also got to see Times Square and the Empire State Building. I graduated Best in Seminar from the AMSC-SBLM program in July 2003, and we completed our capstone on a field trip to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I had a professional article published in the peer-reviewed ASHRAE Journal in September 2003. Since I obtained 15 graduate level credits from completing the AMSC SBLM program, I got the Corps of Engineers to pay for me to complete an online master's degree while working full-time from 2005 to 2007. I completed the MSM degree from University of Maryland University College in 2007 with a 4.0 GPA. During my years with the Department of the Army from 1992 to 2014, I also completed over 25 prospect training courses, which stands for Proponent-Sponsored Engineering Courses and Training. Prospect. Anyway, those courses were in numerous states, about 26 different states, such as Colorado, New Mexico, Ohio, Illinois, Florida, etc., including the main USACE Training Center in Huntsville, Alabama, which is near the University of Alabama at Huntsville and the Space and Rocket Center. All of that studying and my personal hobbies took a toll on my marriage because I failed to focus on family. and my marriage ended in divorce in June of 2006. We split the profit from the sale of our house in Statesboro, and I moved to a small house I purchased in Hinesville to be close to my kids. Since they now live with their mother, they're close to her work at Fort Stewart. I started a new relationship in early 2007 with a teacher in Richmond Hill and her family that lasted 4.5 years. We had fun together on trips to Graceland, Myrtle Beach, Las Vegas, the Grand Canyon, etc. We also rented a mountain cabin in Pigeon Forge and beach houses in Savannah and Amelia Island. We even went on a trip and got a puppy dog named Lucky. However, our relationship just remained friends, and sadly, she recently passed away this year. In July 2008, I was selected for an integrator position at the USACE, which pulled together value engineering, cost engineering, master planning, and AE source selection. In addition to cost estimates for the course projects, it involved traveling to the surrounding military bases to conduct value engineering studies of projects to recommend ideas for cost savings and design improvements, as well as participating in AE source selection evaluation boards to review proposals from architect engineering design firms that competed for USACE contracts. In October 2008, I purchased an old house in Savannah that had been built in 1951. It was near my work in the historic district of Savannah, and I thought at the time it was a low price for a brick home I could fix up. However, the housing market quickly collapsed due to the 2008 financial crisis, and I ended up stuck in an old house with foundation issues and bars on the doors and windows. I also rented out my other house in Hinesville on a lease purchase agreement to a lady who had numerous pets that destroyed the carpet and air conditioning system before she abandoned the agreement and moved to Canada. So I ended up eventually having to sell both properties at a loss. I met some new friends in 2010 and started thinking about making some changes in my life. For a while, I've been looking at cheap land in West Texas and Polk County, Florida, as well as cheap RVs for sale on eBay. I purchased a 1978 Mini Winnie motorhome for $1,100 and took an Amtrak train to Kissimmee, Florida to drive it back to Savannah. It was leaking transmission fluid, and I had to stop repeatedly on the long trip home. I moved it to my parents' farm and set it up there under a tarp to protect the leaking roof, and I eventually sold it to a street performer in Savannah who had been living in a tent. After those foolish purchases, I then started looking at overseas deployments to Afghanistan as a USACE civilian in 2011. I was offered an office/project engineer position at Shandan Air Base in the southern part of Afghanistan near the Iranian border. With the danger pay, foreign post differential, and overtime, for instance, working 6.5 days a week, 12 hours a day, I could earn 2.5 times my normal salary. Civilian engineers work inside the wire at forward operation bases where it's not as dangerous. So I decided to accept the year-long temporary duty deployment, TDY, temporary duty deployment. Just before I deployed, in August 2011, my new friends introduced me to my current wife, who lives near Atlanta. We initially started with online correspondence, but decided to meet in person in September 2011. After our first date at Lake Horton and the Dwarf House near her home, we soon thereafter got a mountain cabin in Blue Ridge and were engaged before I deployed to Afghanistan in October 2011. I went to the USACE Deployment Center, the UDC, in Winchester, Virginia, on the 21st of October in 2011 to deploy with the USACE Transatlantic Division, Middle East District. My flight overseas went to Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, and then to Kandahar Air Force Base. From there, I traveled in C-1700 and C-130 Air Force aircraft, Huey helicopters, fixed-wing prop planes, and up-armored SUVs back and forth between Kandahar to Shindan Air Base and to Camp Stone in Herat, Afghanistan, for my TDY tours and R&Rs. R&Rs, by the way, stands for Rest and Recuperation. The primary projects I worked on were the perimeter fence and guard towers, a wastewater treatment plant, a munitions storage facility, and a new resident office at Shindan. I transferred to Camp Stone in April 2012. My fiancée and I met in England for my first R&R in London, Paris, and Rome in February 2012. We had planned to sail the Mediterranean on the Costa Concordia cruise ship, but it hit a sandbar and keeled over and sank just before we were to set sail. We had a symbolic wedding at the hotel we stayed at in London, and then we saw Buckingham Palace, took a Eurostar train from King's Cross Station to Paris to see the Eiffel Tower, and then went to Marseille, France, and caught a flight through Amsterdam to Rome, Italy, to tour the Vatican Museum. On my other two R&Rs, I flew back home to the USA through Germany, Ireland, Dubai, and Ali Al Salim Air Base in Kuwait. I completed my deployment and returned home permanently in October 2012. I received commander's medals for my distinguished service during Operation Enduring Freedom. After returning home, I officially got remarried in November 2012. I became a COR, which is a contracting officer's representative, on 47 task orders at the USACE, while simultaneously conducting VE studies in 2013, and I was on a management-directed reassignment detail as the acting chief of the AE Contract Management Section in 2014. During that time, I was commuting back and forth 4 hours each way between Savannah and my wife's house in Fayetteville on the weekends and holidays, so I started applying for federal jobs in Atlanta. After I sold the 60-year-old house in Savannah, I moved into a room I rented in a house in Pooler, Georgia. I finally got selected for an engineer inspector position with the USACE PHMSA in Atlanta, but I had to take a voluntary downgrade from a GS-13 to a GS-12. With the higher locality pay in Atlanta combined with my savings from the Afghanistan deployment, I could afford to do it. So I transferred from the USACE Savannah District to the U.S. Department of Transportation Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration Southern Region, then moved to Fayetteville, Georgia in October 2014. We purchased a new home in July 2015 that we're still living in 9 years later. I completed 30 training courses with PHMSA in Oklahoma City, Texas, Indiana, and West Virginia from 2014 to 2017. I served on a 120-day CATS program manager detail in April of 2016, and I was promoted back to GS-13 in November 2016. I went on several vacations and side trips during this period, such as to New Jersey, New York City, and Connecticut in 2013, to the Bahamas and a private island on a cruise ship in 2016, to Falling Water in Mill Run, Pennsylvania in 2017 and 2019, to Las Vegas, the Hoover Dam, and the Grand Canyon again in 2018, to Cozumel, Mexico on a cruise ship in 2019. More recently, we went to the Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama, and to the Great Smoky Mountains / Pigeon Forge and Ruby Falls during the COVID-19 pandemic. Other fun and family-related events over the past few years include attending Dragon Con multiple years starting in 2016, going to several concerts, attending my daughter's graduations from the University of Georgia at Athens and Valdosta State University during the pandemic, visiting my stepson's college campus, axe throwing in Kansas City in 2022, going to Disney World parks such as Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, Animal Kingdom, and Disney Springs, going to see the famous Hollywood sign in Los Angeles, California in 2023, going to Universal Orlando in 2024, being part of my daughter's wedding at Dutch Ford Farm in 2024, camping at Lake Sinclair for several years and buying my dad's motorboat, going to my brother's house near Charleston to buy his SUV for my stepdaughter, and my wife's recent solo trip to Florida. And we're currently booked to fly to Alaska in September of this year in 2024. Going back to my career, from 2018 to 2019, I was an Agreement Officer's Representative, AOR, supporting PHMSA's R&D projects. In 2019, I was promoted to GS-14 as an Operations Supervisor, which is a supervisory general engineer position in PHMSA's Southern Region. I also passed a 6-hour exam, which included a hands-on visual section at the National Welding Inspection School in Texas to earn a Certified Pipeline Welding Inspector, CPWI, certificate in 2019. I served on a merit review panel, MRP, reviewing CCAP proposals in 2022. I received the 2022 Career Service Award for 35 years of federal service at that time. It's now going on almost 38 years. I'm on the Construction Inspection Committee team that received a PHMSA Team Award for Innovation in 2022. I graduated from PHMSA's Advanced Leadership Development Program, ALDP, in Washington, D.C. in December of 2022. We took a field trip to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania as part of that 9-month leadership program, like we did during the SBLM program I completed with the USACE 20 years ago. I also went to the DOT's Leaning in the Leadership event in D.C. and the PHMSA's R&D Forum in Arlington, Virginia in 2023. Finally, in 2024, I was nominated for and accepted a position to chair the Leadership Program Alumni Association Committee on DEIA. I'm looking forward to my MRA, which is the minimum retirement age, on Christmas of this year, December 25th, 2024, when I'll be eligible to retire with my full federal pension, otherwise known as a unreduced FERS annuity. And I plan to keep working at least another 9 months after that until the end of FY 2025.